Knock it off with the theatrics, Kathleen. You were aware this was on the horizon. My spouse, Tom, uttered those words as he was standing in our living room in Palm Springs, wearing a smirk as he looked at the photo album I had painstakingly assembled for weeks. Honestly, take a look at this thing. Is this really what it's come to? A measly little book trying to capture a quarter of a century of marriage? I just watched as he thumbed through the pages, bending the carefully placed corners that I had arranged with such care. Each photograph symbolized a significant moment during our time as a couple. Our wedding, acquiring our first house, vacations, and the gatherings with family. The thing Tom didn't realize was that among those memories was something of much greater worth than simple nostalgia. Oh, and since we're being brutally honest here, he went on to say, slamming the album shut without a care, I've been involved with Jessica from work for the last 8 months. She's young, driven, everything that you no longer are. He motioned toward the suitcase he'd already packed near the doorway. I'm taking off tonight. We'll be staying at the Grand Vista Hotel until we are able to secure a place for ourselves. Jessica, his intern who's only 28, figures. I had been suspicious about their relationship ever since his late nights at work and the unfamiliar scent that lingered on his clothing. But I didn't say a word, just waiting for the perfect opportunity to present itself. Well, that's quite the thing to say, I replied, my voice not wavering even though my hands were shaking. And this had to happen on our anniversary of all days. Seriously, you didn't really think I was going to celebrate, did you? He chuckled, the sound bouncing off the tall walls of our living room. The photo collection, that dinner you booked at Lorenzo's as far as I can see, pathetic, Kathleen. I stood up from the sofa, adjusting the fabric of my dress. The green dress he consistently told me made me appear older than I am. I moved to where he was standing and reached out for the photo album. You're correct about one thing, at least, Tom. This evening isn't playing out like you'd imagined. He raised his eyebrows as I snatched the album from his hand. Just what do you think you're doing? Getting back what belongs to me, I responded, a faint grin forming on my face. Because you definitely won't be needing these memories any longer. Tom didn't comprehend that tucked between those carefully arranged pictures was the answer to my future and the demise of the easy life he was used to. I had been aware of Tom's infidelity for several months already, but that hadn't been the thing that had kept me awake at night. Just a week ago, I got news that was going to alter everything. My hands shook somewhat as I clutched the album, remembering the instant I verified those digits on my lottery ticket. 6 numbers that had changed me from a fatting housewife to someone worth millions. The memory of that moment remained perfectly clear, as I recall sitting at my kitchen table at 3 in the morning, rechecking the numbers over and over again in the low light, afraid to even breathe, afraid to actually believe it. Actually, Eleanor Wilson, arguably Palm Springs' most reputable money manager, was the person I initially dialed. We had painstakingly dedicated 3 days to strategically arranging the details and safeguarding my financial well-being. I had even begun browsing listings for homes near the ocean in Malibu, picturing a new life far from the oppressive heat of the desert and those memories that held me back. Remember this, Tom, I remarked as my fingers traced along the edge of the album. My mind drifted back to all the clues I had dismissed during those previous 8 months. The evenings he stayed out late, the private conversations he took, those mysterious professional trips that never seemed to have any documentation to support them. For a quarter of a century, he could understand my feelings and reactions instantly, like flipping through pages. I reflected on the instant I resolved to put this album together, painstakingly choosing pictures that would keep my secret concealed within. Tom's phone vibrated. He took a quick look at it and grinned. That would be Jessica. She's downstairs waiting for him. He adjusted his tie, the azure silk one that I gifted him for the holidays. My legal representative will be in touch regarding the property and finances. Just try to keep things civil, Kathleen. It'll be easier on all of us if we deal with this maturely. I gave a nod, my eyes fixed on him as he fussed with his wristwatch. He was likely adding up how much he could take from the split, figuring out how he'd keep up his current way of living with Jessica. What he didn't know was that in precisely 180 seconds, his entire scheme would fall apart. The evidence of my wealth was tucked securely within these pages, ready to be unveiled. Before you leave, I stated, opening the picture book again, there's something I need to show you. With great care, I pulled out a paper from within the pages of our photos from Hawaii, our last getaway together. Even though Tom spent a majority of the time texting Jessica while pretending he was answering work-related emails, the document was crisp and looked official. I held it gingerly between my digits as I watched Tom's face change from being impatient to showing curiosity. Huh, another pamphlet for couples therapy? He chuckled, a sound that was devoid of any real humor. I've got a feeling we're way beyond that as a solution, don't you think? Actually, I said, straightening my posture, pulling on the self-assurance that had been building within me ever since what I found out last week. This is far more fascinating. You see, while you had your attention focused on mapping out your future with Jessica, I was also keeping myself occupied. I unfolded the piece of paper carefully, making sure to take my time. The official heading of the California State Lottery Commission shone brightly beneath the lights in our living room. Tom squinted, straining to decipher the words from where he was standing across the room. "What exactly are you up to, Kathleen?" The sarcastic tone had vanished from his voice. "7 days ago, I hit the jackpot, Tom. The total winnings were $98 million, to be precise. After deducting taxes, it works out to just a little over $60 million. I observed as all the color seemed to disappear from his complexion. The really ironic thing is, according to the laws here in California, lottery winnings that are claimed before any divorce actions get started are seen as separate property belonging solely to the winner." His suitcase dropped to the floor with a heavy asterisk thump asterisk. "You're making this up," he mumbled, but his gaze was locked onto the official emblem. The validation numbers, the total sum written out in large, dark lettering. No, I'm not. I've already had consultations with money managers, attorneys, and investment experts. Everything has been taken care of and is safe and sound. The cash belongs to me, Tom. Every single penny of it. He moved 1 foot closer to me, then another, his expression twisting into a combination of disbelief and despair. "Kathleen, sweetie, let's discuss this reasonably. You know my feelings for you haven't disappeared. Perhaps I jumped the gun a bit, zoomed the gun a bit." I cut him off, my voice even and calm. "Like when you scheduled that lovey-dovey getaway to Santa Barbara with Jessica, perhaps? Or the time you dipped into our shared funds to purchase her that expensive diamond bracelet." His cell phone vibrated persistently once more. It's likely Jessica's downstairs, growing impatient, wondering what's taking him so long. The sheer contradiction of the situation wasn't lost on me. She's on the verge of encountering an entirely new version of Tom compared to the one she anticipated. "You're not allowed to treat me like this," he pleaded, his voice breaking slightly. "We're a legally bound couple. I possess certain entitlements." A smile spread across my face. I felt unburdened in a way I hadn't felt in ages. "The truth is, Tom, I actually am allowed to do this. And I am indeed doing it. Jessica is eagerly awaiting your arrival. You really ought not to keep her waiting any longer. After all, you two have an all-new, exciting chapter to start together." Tom devoted the subsequent hour to attempting to salvage what he could from his meticulous plans. Observing the change in him was nearly captivating. The manner in which his earlier contempt transitioned into a desperate attempt to charm. The way his cocky grin faded into an expression he likely thought was an adorable smile. I'd been witness to this act before, but never with consequences this significant. "We can resolve this situation," he suggested, walking back and forth in our living room. "Give it some thought, Kathleen. 25 years of marriage should count for something. We've established a life with one another." He gestured towards our house, the same house he'd secretly taken out a second mortgage on twice to pay off his gambling losses. "Okay, so I made a few errors with Jessica, but that was it lacked authenticity. You're the person I married." I remained seated, clutching that photo album, trying to stay composed. "The woman you married? It's funny how you seem to have forgotten that just an hour before when you were calling me a loser." His phone vibrated maybe a dozen times at the very least. Every single time it happened, he'd sneak a worried peek at it before rejecting the call. Poor Jessica was probably still downstairs. She was likely wondering why her incredible new life still hadn't started. "I'm going to end things with her immediately," Tom announced as he reached for his phone. "I'll have her come up here and you can watch me break up with her." Would that actually make a difference? Would that demonstrate that I'm serious? I shook my head, feeling almost bad for him. You genuinely don't understand what's going on, do you? This isn't about Jessica at all. It's about a quarter of a century filled with lies, being controlled, and a complete lack of respect. Winning the lottery has simply allowed me to finally understand things. That's when his voice changed. The pleading charm disappeared, and something much more sinister took its place. You honestly believe you can just leave like that? After all the sacrifices I've made for you? He moved closer, towering over me menacingly. I'm the one who made you who you are today. Before you met me, you were no one, just a girl from a small town with big ideas but no real plan. I stayed right where I was, unwilling to be scared. And now I'm a girl from that small town who has $60 million and a really great lawyer. I looked directly into his eyes. Want me to give you his phone number? You're going to be hearing from him tomorrow regardless. I'm going to fight you tooth and nail for every last cent, he growled menacingly. I'll make this last for years and years. Do you honestly believe you can live it up with your riches while I'm putting you through the legal ringer? Actually, I leafed through the photo album and located another piece of evidence. The legal team I hired has taken care of all the preliminary work. They have evidence that confirms your extramarital relationship, your problem with gambling, and the funds you've been secretly taking from our financial accounts. They've even collected the proof of purchase for all those presents you gave Jessica, charged to our shared credit card. I wonder how the judge will interpret that. His face lost its healthy glow again. His phone made one more noise, and this time, observing his reaction to the message, I could see pure terror in his expression. I could make out a part of the message, even from across the room. Just what's happening up there? Dad is sitting at the restaurant with the person who might invest. If we don't appear right away, we'll lose all of it. I smiled, finally piecing everything together. Wait, let me take a shot in the dark. Was Jessica's dad planning on putting money into your new business? The same one you've been taking funds from our company to launch? Tom stepped back unsteadily, practically falling onto our expensive Italian leather couch, yet another pointless indulgence that he insisted upon. How could you possibly know? His words just faded away as I retrieved yet another piece of paper from the album. It's surprising what information people will reveal when they perceive you as simply an insignificant stay-at-home wife, I commented, flattening the paper on the table. Like Amanda, who works in your accounting department, for example. For months, she voiced her unease concerning those unusual financial transactions, yet you consistently ignored her concerns. She felt a wave of comfort as she eventually presented the records to an individual who was willing to lend an ear. You've been looking into my affairs, he snarled, his face twisting in anger. You weren't authorized to do that. Actually, being both your spouse and a stakeholder in the organization, my rights were perfectly justified. My legal team presented the proof last week and the board of directors concurred. I stopped talking for a moment, letting the weight of my words settle. They are scheduled to convene first thing tomorrow to talk about your situation, although I have a feeling that conversation will be pretty short. His phone vibrated once more. This time he picked up the call, his hands visibly trembling. Jessica, I'm not going to be able to make it. Something urgent has popped up. He grimaced as he pulled the phone away from his ear as a torrent of angry accusations erupted. When he finally ended the call, he looked utterly defeated. You've destroyed everything, he murmured quietly. No, Tom, you were the architect of your own downfall. I simply can't condone this kind of behavior any longer. I got up and moved over to our expansive windows that offered a panoramic view of the sparkling city below. Do you know what's really ironic? If you had just been truthful with me, if you had simply requested a divorce in a civilized manner, I would have likely shared a portion of my winnings with you. Maybe not 50%, but a significant amount. But what now? Now you'll receive absolutely nothing. I turned my gaze back towards him. Well, perhaps that isn't entirely accurate. You will be responsible for the ramifications of your actions. The board will also be filing legal action related to the misappropriation of company funds. Those hidden overseas accounts that you were sure were completely safe are what they're really focused on. Tom's complexion flushed deeply, then faded to white, and then reddened once more. He made a grab for the photo album, undoubtedly hoping he'd uncover additional documents he could get rid of. But I had already taken out all the vital materials. All that was left were images, reminders of a past life that was gone. You're calculating using people. He stopped speaking abruptly, probably understanding how hypocritical his statement was. I responded evenly, I had a great teacher. Although I also owe some credit to Jessica. If she hadn't been so excited to boast about your joint schemes at her yoga session, I might not have discovered the theft so quickly. Her acquaintance, Olivia, became quite talkative after a few glasses of wine. The reality of the situation was finally hitting him. Every elaborate blueprint he had created, every plot he had put together, was falling apart. He wasn't merely losing his luxurious life with me or his future with Jessica. He was losing absolutely everything. The cops will arrive shortly, I mentioned, glancing at my watch. Amanda submitted the formal complaint earlier today. I'd recommend using this time to contact an attorney, specifically one who handles criminal defense. You're definitely going to require it. A loud rap on the door caused Tom to flinch. His gaze frantically scanned the area like an animal caught in a trap, desperately trying to locate a way out. Our apartment was located on the 15th floor. There wasn't one. That will be Detective Harrison, I stated, calmly proceeding to answer the door. That business with those accounts overseas has really been holding his attention. Hold on a second. Tom reached out and clutched my arm, his grip actually hurting me. There's gotta be a way to smooth this over. I'm willing to put my signature on anything you ask for. If you want divorce papers, a statement admitting to the affair, name it, just please don't go through with this. I glanced at his hand clamped on my arm and then lifted my gaze to meet his eyes. Take your hand off me, Tom, do it now. Another knock echoed through the room, only this time it was even louder and more persistent. Tom let go of my arm and backed away. You're not getting the whole picture here. Others are mixed up in this situation, you see, people with a lot of influence. If any of this comes to light— Oh, I'm well aware of the influential people you're talking about, I said, smoothing out the fabric of my sleeve. Like Michael Anderson, who's been assisting you in keeping your money hidden through the fake businesses he owns. He turned on you a few days ago. It seems he's more worried about getting prosecuted by the feds than he is about you. The color drained completely from Tom's face. No way, Michael wouldn't do that, but he did. Just after the FBI showed him undeniable evidence that you had plans to take the blame off yourself and place it all on him. I gave him a tiny smile. Your text conversations were quite revealing. You really needed to have been more careful with what your phone password was. You know, using 1234 isn't exactly the most secure thing you could have done. Now the knocking had escalated to a full-blown pounding. Is this Mr. Thomas Wilson? Police here. Open up. Tom tried one final, frantic attempt to change my mind. Consider what this will do to the way people see you. Will everyone now associate you with sending your spouse to jail? Is that the legacy you desire, to be seen as the spiteful woman who turned in a lawbreaker? I cut them off. Who was instrumental in uncovering a multi-million-dollar corporate scheme? Who shielded blameless investors from a con man? Absolutely, that's a label I can live with. I swung open the door and there stood Detective Harrison, flanked by a pair of uniformed cops. He's all yours, Detective. I think you'll be particularly intrigued by what's on his cell phone. He was on the verge of erasing some compromising communications. Tom's face twisted in anger as the officers moved toward him. You orchestrated this whole thing. The photo album, our anniversary dinner, it was all a trap. Actually, I remarked, the lottery win was just good fortune. As I observed them putting the handcuffs on him, but the rest of it? Yes, I mapped it all out meticulously. Think of it as a quarter-century of investment finally coming to fruition. Just as they were escorting him toward the exit, he glanced back one final time. What about Jessica? Will you destroy her life as well? Jessica is responsible for the decisions she's made, I answered. However, don't fret. She has already been given duplicates of your messages with Michael Anderson, notably the ones where you referred to her as a fool who would take the blame if anything went south. I bet she's quite preoccupied at the moment, likely conferring with her own attorney. I observed them guide him out, his shoulders drooping. The photo album continued to sit there on the coffee table, overflowing with reminders of a life constructed on dishonesty. Though, truthfully, I didn't require those reminders any longer. I possessed something of greater value. A future that I was actively crafting myself. After a year had passed, I found myself relaxing in my newly acquired beach house in Malibu. I watched as the sunset transformed the Pacific into a canvas of vibrant orange and shimmering gold. The crashing of waves had taken over from the desert breezes that used to blow through Palm Springs, and the salty ocean air had purged what remained of my past existence. The whirlwind of media attention that followed Tom's arrest had been powerful but short-lived. Corporate scandals tend not to captivate the public for an extended period, particularly when even bigger controversies come to light. Tom had accepted a plea agreement, consenting to give evidence against his accomplices in return for a less severe punishment. A sentence of 8 years as opposed to 20. Jessica had run off to Arizona once the scandal went public. Her aspirations of being the spouse of a rich executive were completely destroyed. I reached for the newspaper that morning and read yet another article concerning the legal case. This time, it was heaping praise on the individuals who had exposed the dishonest practices. My name was in the piece, along with Amanda, who works in accounting, as important individuals who had assisted in revealing the operation. However, I wasn't particularly invested in reading that particular story. What held my interest was the business portion of the paper, where my new nonprofit organization was showcased. Winning the lottery handed me freedom, but it was the organization I built that really gave my life direction. Our focus was aiding women in breaking free from financial abuse, offering assistance and tools to those stuck in circumstances mirroring the ones I once faced. Each woman's triumph felt like a win for me personally. My phone vibrated with a notification. It was a message from Alina Wilson, the person who manages my finances. The foundation's most recent investment had been remarkably profitable. More funds available to assist even more women. I grinned as I reflected on the huge difference between my life now and that night when I was looking at the photos. In certain instances, the most effective way to get back at someone is to construct an existence for yourself that exceeds anything they could imagine. I unexpectedly got a letter from Tom the other week. For several days, the prison-issued envelope sat unopened on my desk until my curiosity finally got the better of me. Within the envelope, I discovered numerous pages filled with apologies, explanations, and requests for absolution. He claimed to have discovered religion while incarcerated and expressed a desire to atone for his past actions. He also made note of hearing about my foundation's achievements and speculated that perhaps we could collaborate after his release. I couldn't help but chuckle at how predictable he was. Even while locked up, he was still searching for openings, still attempting to manipulate his way into wealth. I destroyed the letter without responding in any way. That night, while I was at the organization's fundraising event, I ended up telling James, a wealthy investor and widower who'd become a substantial contributor, this very story. His eyes showed sincere amusement just like mine, getting small at the edges as he reacted with incredulity. He chuckled, handed me a champagne flute, and said some people are always the same. However, some people really do evolve. He indicated the crowd, where a multitude of women who had survived comparable experiences were prospering, with many now owning their own companies. When it comes to evolving, I chimed in, remember that picture book that sparked everything? It has finally found a useful place. I made a donation of it to a museum's show on financial crimes and domestic violence. The album was displayed in a glass container. Its pages revealed the secret places where I had hidden the documentation. Underneath it, a small sign stated that sometimes we feel trapped by problems, but we can overcome them. James held up his drink in a toast, offering it to the idea of breaking free. And to creating connections, I said then, thinking about all of the women we had assisted and the countless others we were still going to support.